Welcome back to Fitness on Fire TV. I'm Coach Josh Graves. I'm here with Coach Noah Grimé, North American Spartan Champion and National Series Spartan Champion. Noah, super stoked to have you, man, and to interview you and to talk a little bit about your last year's Spartan racing, man.
Josh, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share my experience about Abu Dhabi.
Awesome. So I'd like to warm you up with some easy questions just to start with. So tell me about your favorite obstacle.
My favorite obstacle is an obstacle called Ape Hanger. This is particularly in a couple races, but Tahoe 2019, you're climbing, traversing on like a set of monkey bars with water underneath you.
Is this so 2019, so this was the year that they had the ape hanger. It was like in the parking lot or like in the festival area almost.
Yep.
And then there's the tire flip afterwards.
Yep, that's the one.
Dude, that tire flip, I've never struggled at a tire flip so bad. I think it was just wet. It was on the cement, so I couldn't get underneath it and all that. Almost gave up on that tire flip. And then there's like a dude on the sideline on the fence, like right as I was about to quit and go do my burpees, like, come on, bro, you got that. I'm like, okay. So I felt I flipped the tire. He's screaming at me the whole time. You got me through the tire flip.
Well, right there with you. Probably the toughest tire flip ever.
I love the ape hanger too, but what I don't love about the ape hanger is you still have to drop in the water even if you pass the obstacle. It would be pretty cool if you could climb the rope, hit the monkey bars over the water, and then like maybe climb down into the rope but not have to drop in the water.
Totally.
Yeah. But definitely my favorite obstacle too. What about the hardest obstacle? What's the hardest obstacle you've ever done?
I'd say the hardest obstacle I've ever done is probably one of the multi-rig obstacles, especially at the end of the race when your hands are tired. So the obstacle with like the ropes right at the end of the rig, I would say that's probably one of the hardest obstacles.
This last year, they brought in the fat grip ropes in the multi-rig. Did you like those? Did you think they were easier, harder?
You know, I got these big hands, so particularly that obstacle, it's a bit hard, but I do pretty well with it.
Cool. Yeah, multi-rig's always good fun. I kind of miss when they accessorize the multi-rig a little bit. Now we kind of know what to expect for the most part in the races, but back in the day, sometimes you have like the long ropes with the platform you had to put your feet on, and then the layout was always a little different. They had the ball grips at some point, right? So
definitely a little bit more unexpected of what you're going to find. So it's a little more traditional now with the rope grips, especially for the beast race.
Super cool, super cool. What about a favorite Spartan race memory? You've been racing for, how long have you been racing for?
I've been racing for a little over 10 years now.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay. So respect. I think I've been racing for maybe 7.5, almost 8 years. So 10 years, that's cool. So you were racing back when they had the gladiators, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think Spartan race started in 2011. So 2012 was my first race with some college friends, and they had the gladiators. So you got to charge them at the end, and they're hitting you with the giant toothpicks. And a lot of the Spartan fans are asking for those guys to come back. But so definitely very cool.
2015. I think they just cut it in 2015. I think 2014 was the last year with the gladiators, so I feel like I really missed like a part of Spartan history. But it's like, could you even say you're a Spartan racer if you never got hit by a gladiator? Right. So they robbed me there. But give me a favorite Spartan race memory.
I would say one of my favorite Spartan race memories were one of my championship races from this year. So it was actually the conclusion of the series for the national series, and that was in South Carolina. So I won the series. I placed first in that race, and just finishing that race and after traveling across, the United States, that was a big deal for me. And realizing that I'd completed one of my biggest goals of 2022, becoming the National Series champion.
Super cool, man. Awesome. Proud of you, man. I'm super proud of you. I've raced alongside you for at least 5 years. At some point, we were like racing. I may or may not have beaten Noah one time in a race. It's in the history book somewhere. But gosh, somewhere around 2 or 3 years ago, something changed in your racing, and I felt like you started to get really competitive in racing. And I went from running alongside you to almost like watching from a far distance and like watching you win races. Just out of curiosity, what changed in your racing in the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing these races a while, and you're absolutely right. I think definitely some things have changed in the last few years. And I would say that after being a part of the sport for 10 years and first just taking it like it's just a fun little hobby, and then realizing I actually am pretty good at this. Maybe I should pursue this. Maybe I should put a little bit more effort into this. And just realizing that all of us are a creature of habits, getting into a comfortable place. We're not going to grow from there. So I feel like just understanding that it's going to take a little bit more to be able to have a better outcome. There's a little bit more competitiveness now, and being okay with the fact that this might be the one thing that I'm really good at, And so I definitely think there was a switch that flipped in realizing that if I just put a little bit more work in, that I could get a good outcome, and I could maybe even, place top 10 or something like that. And started really getting that curiosity for actually winning and maybe being the best at something.
Nice. So what was it that changed in like your actual actions? Like what did you do differently in your training or in the time you were spending in your workouts? Like I heard that like you woke up, right? You're like, hey man, maybe I could be really good at this. I'm going to double down on myself on this. But what did you actually do once you made that decision that this was something you want to be competitive in?
Totally. Well, stop drinking beer. No, I'm just kidding.
Dang, that's why I'm never competitive as Spartan racing.
So realistically, just seeing where I was at. I was running maybe 3 days a week and getting in the gym a few days a week and just kind of being a little bit lackadaisical on what I was actually trying to pursue. So, just really dialing my training down, figuring out, where are some of my weaknesses? What are some things that are actually going to get me faster and give me better results in some of these races?
So what kind of training, like preparation, does it really take to go to that next level? What's your training currently kind of look like?
So on a typical week, I'm running about 4 to 6 days a week, depending on the time of year. And then I'm in the gym doing weightlifting about 3 days a week. I'm a pretty active guy, so I'm constantly someone that can't stay still. So I'm very active, getting a lot of steps in. I was working at a restaurant for probably the last 5 years, and so just getting tons of steps in. So I think that attributes to some of this, time on my feet and things that did translate a little bit to these races. So I'm also a big fan of mountain biking, yoga, and anything else that can keep me busy.
Super cool. So a lot of active recovery mixed into the weight training. Because I think sometimes when people hear like, oh my gosh, I got to weight train 3 days a week or 5 days, 3 to 5 days a week, and I've got to run 4 to 6 days a week. It sounds like it's all what my acupuncturist calls yang energy, right? It's just like strong punch through energy, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like there's also a balance though, if I hear you correctly, of active recovery and a little bit of that yin stuff, a little bit more of the yoga, the active recovery on like the mountain bike. That's kind of true?
Totally. Yeah, I think there's needs to be a great balance to a lot of the hard effort type of training that athletes do. So I think the more you can mix in of that kind of active recovery type of stuff, it's helpful when you have hobbies that keep you moving and keep you busy. And I think that does a lot for keeping us just mentally clear, and then also helps our body recover for that next training session.
Excellent, man. Very good. So, okay, out of curiosity, so you said, hey, I'm going to be good at this sport. This is where I'm going to plant my flag, and I'm going to really commit to it. And I think I have a chance of being great. Did it just work out like that when you first started racing? Did you immediately start winning races?
Well, my first big competitive race was actually in 2018, and I raced in West Virginia, and I placed second in my age group. And I thought I'd worked pretty hard for that. And so that was kind of my first taste of something that I could actually accomplish, And so I knew getting to that point took a lot of work, but that was like my first experience of actually getting pretty close to winning a competition.
Nice. I've ran West Virginia. I ran West Virginia in 2019. I think it's one of my favorite races. Like the mossy trees. There's like there was a river carry. We had a log that we carried.
Oh yeah,
the river.
Yeah.
I didn't
know you raced West Virginia. That's awesome.
2019.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. It was good. The swim. I think I was in the top 5 until the swim. Such a slow swimmer, bro. We get the if you've never ran a Spartan race in the water, they actually make you wear life vest and all that. So that's good. It's very safe. They have lifeguards in the water. It's very well ran. But still, I'm just a terrible swimmer. So it took me forever to get my thing on. Dudes are passing me. And then I get in the water. I'm like doggy paddling. Dudes are passing me. Dudes are backstroking passing me, like wave it to me as they go by. And I think I finished that race like maybe 16. So I think I lost at least 10 spots in the water. But also one of my favorite courses ever, though. Really cool.
Yeah.
So nice, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about Abu Dhabi because I'm really excited to get into that a little bit with you. What a cool experience. I mean, I have to imagine it was amazing out there. So if you would, man, tell us like how. So again, if you don't know, Noah last year, Noah won the North American Championship. So he just qualified for the race by winning other races that got him an invite to the North American Championship. The North American Championship was in Canada this last year.
Yeah, Kelowna, Canada.
So gets an invite to that race, goes out, handles his business, wins the North American Championship, two-time winner, 2021 and 2022 North American champion. And then the national series, and almost, I think they kind of maybe got that idea from like NASCAR or something like that, right? Where you run a couple different races and there's like a point system and the point accumulation ends up being the winner for the year in the national series.
Correct.
So ended up winning the national series last year and got an invite to go to Abu Dhabi to race in the World Championship. What a cool opportunity. I think I'm going to start with that question though. I think you got an invite to Abu Dhabi for winning the North American Championship in 2021, but didn't go then, right? So 2022, what actually made you decide to go to Abu Dhabi this year and actually race in the World Champion?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I did have an invite for 2021 and didn't even think that was really an option and didn't think I was, you can call it, worthy for that race. 2022 came around and again, I hadn't really planned to go to Abu Dhabi that year. And lo and behold, I was kind of surprised with some support from my community to help me get to Abu Dhabi. So right when I realized that support was coming in and I had some people behind me, kind of pushing and supporting me, I had, flipped the switch. I knew like I have to go and do this race. Like I got to do this experience.
Oh man, so cool. So tell us a little bit about the experience. Like what was Abu Dhabi like as a whole?
Abu Dhabi's crazy. It's such an interesting place. Definitely have never been anywhere like that before. It's, well, first off, in December, it's still incredibly hot. It's warm, it's humid, and, traveling there is obviously a challenge.
20 hours is what you said?
Yeah, it's about 20 hours of traveling. So that is the longest by far I've ever been on a plane. So that's an interesting experience as a runner, as a racer, sitting on a plane and, a week and a half before a race. And it's not something we would traditionally do getting ready for a race. The race experience is like nothing else. You're racing out in the sand, you're racing out in the dunes, so you're expecting something crazy, and definitely was. And showing up to a place like Abu Dhabi, I was very excited to just see the whole layout of the city, both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and just really experience the Middle East, that type of weather, those types of people, the food. And so I was really open-minded with the whole experience and thought about like, how am I going to be able to get into the mindset of running and trying to compete and race the World Championships?
For sure. So, gosh, I got to imagine that's got to be a challenge, right? 20 hours of traveling, going to a new place, new country. Like, what were some of the challenges you had getting into race mode or being able to go from like vacation/race mode? How did you do all that?
Totally. It's definitely different when you're trying to enjoy and get some vacation time. And, I went with my wife. And so I wanted to experience Abu Dhabi and Dubai with her at the same time, trying to stay focused and train properly leading up to the race and keep my body in what I thought was my peak physical shape going into this race. So definitely really tough. I would say some of the harder things is just not knowing what the options for food are going to be, so as you can imagine, athletes, they like to eat consistently. They like to know what they're eating before workouts, before races. So I was trying to figure out what can I get away with packing in my bag and get over to Abu Dhabi without getting in trouble, but also to try and keep some consistency and have some reliable food options.
I bet people don't think about that. I mean, I don't know if I would have immediately considered that. When you go to a different country, everything's different nutritionally, right? Like, was it pretty standard? Were you able to find like pretty decent food, like food that you were familiar with?
Yeah, Abu Dhabi and Dubai specifically, it's incredible how diverse the food is there. Really, there wasn't anything that we couldn't find. That's so funny because literally you show up, like, people say like, yeah, you can get anything there. But to me, I'm just going to be overly cautious. I packed like honey. I brought like a bunch of protein bars. I brought like oatmeal packets. I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to find. And then you show up and it's like legitimate, biggest like fullest grocery stores ever with like anything you could imagine. I'm like, oh wow, these grocery stores are like great, which is so funny, you know.
No, I think it's awesome. But you're right. Like, you're a competitive athlete.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave it up to chance.
Right? There's some athletes that are completely just focused on keeping things so specific. And so I'm probably one of those athletes. You know, I like to eat the same thing before I train. I like to eat the same thing before I race. And so there's definitely a little bit of that worry of, will I be able to find like the perfect oatmeal, or, you know, is this going to be different from what I'm used to?
Mm-hmm. Dude, for sure.
So I think if anyone were to actually open my bag and check it, they'd be like, what is this weirdo? Where's he going? Is he going camping for a week? You know, where is he going?
That's funny, man. How long were you there for before you raced and all that? Like, what was your trip like?
So we left and actually went to Germany. We were in Germany for a couple days. So that was nice because it kind of got the jet lag stuff kind of moving, you know, a week before the race. But that was interesting going into a different climate where it was cold and rainy. So that was different going into that to prepare, you know, going into the desert. But we were in Germany for a couple days and then flew into Abu Dhabi, and I was in Abu Dhabi for 4 days total, with the race being on the 4th day. And then after that, we went down to Dubai. So about a week after we had left was the race.
Got you. Okay. Got it. So yeah, I had an experience in Hawaii last year. It was actually my first DNF in a Spartan race ever. But I think we just did it wrong. I think also for the record, I just came off of COVID, so I was pretty like, my aerobic system was pretty challenged. But we went to Hawaii and the race was on the back half. We booked our vacation like the first 7 days so it was like 7 days into being in Hawaii that I raced my Spartan race, and just had too much fun, man. I was partying with the wife. We were drinking a lot of alcohol, way too much alcohol. We were drinking every day, which I hardly drink ever. So like, so we were way off the deep end, eating all the food you can imagine. This is our first time taking a vacation since we had our first son. So just had a really good time. And then I showed up to the race on Saturday a little over cocky. I just, you know, I've been here, I've done this kind of thing. I peed right before the race and my pee was like dark yellow. I'm like, dude, I am crazy dehydrated. I think I made it maybe 5 miles in the race. The humidity in Hawaii was crazy, and ended up having to call it. And I ended up walking off the course about 7 miles, just feeling absolutely awful. So I failed at being able to take a vacation and then run a spark race at the end of it. So I know specifically how difficult it is to go somewhere fun and fall short of being able to show up for my race that weekend. So I mad respect for you for that. It's how often you get to go to Abu Dhabi, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's potentially once in a lifetime trip. So trying to make the most out of it, but also still show up and be ready to perform and do your best at, you know, on race day.
So tell me about the race, how the race goes. So, you know, we talked about the difficulties of logistics, traveling, balancing vacation versus, showing up for your race. Talked about food. You talked about climate a little bit. How did it all pan out? How'd the race go for you?
So to be honest, I had a little bit of a back injury leading up to this race. About a month and a half before the race, I had a pretty weird issue happen with my back where for about a week and a half, I was locked up. I was pretty debilitated. I couldn't run or anything like that.
This was after the last National Series race?
Correct. And it was going to be one of my best training weekends yet, and it was a little bit too much. So I had to kind of deal with that. And so getting into Abu Dhabi, I was definitely worried with all the flying, the sitting. I was concerned with how I was going to even feel showing up, in Germany and then showing up to Abu Dhabi. So it was really challenging to get to Germany, and that would have been one of my first kind of hard workouts leading up to Abu Dhabi. So just expecting something good and hoping for a good workout and hoping that my body's going to react well to all this traveling was definitely scary, and it was definitely hard to know how to prepare compared to a normal race.
How did it all hold up?
So my back actually was fine. That gave me no issues leading up to the race. It gave me no issues during the race. So I'm very thankful for that. And so I was able to get moving in Germany, did a shakeout run, and back felt good, but then my calf was a little strained. So about a week before the race, I was worried now about my lower leg. So that's how it goes is when you're an athlete getting ready for these races, you're always teetering that back and forth with not trying to overdo it, but also doing as much as you can to be as strong and perform the best you can. So that was definitely something more of my concern going into the race was this lower leg kind of issue that happened just from an easy run in Germany. So took it a bit easier than I would normally take it leading up to the race and just focusing on just seeing if I can get my body to recover a bit more, focus just on walking and exploring the areas of Germany. And then getting to Abu Dhabi, I know I had to get at least one, easy run in the sand just to experience, okay, what's this Abu Dhabi sand like and see how my body felt, a few days more. Sand was like, it's soft. I found a beach, private beach in Abu Dhabi, and the rules are very strict in Abu Dhabi. So after about walking, maybe a mile, passing all these beaches that we weren't allowed on, found a little strip. And so I was just running kind of in these little circles on this little area that we were allowed to, and just kind of shaking out the legs, seeing how it all felt. And the sand there is incredibly soft, and I was only expecting, softer, more powdery sand when we were out in the dunes for the race.
I was gonna say, the dunes have to be way gnarlier than just the beach, though, too, right?
Yeah.
And I've never ran in any kind of dunes like that. Like, I've only seen it in movies.
Yeah.
I get lost in the desert and there's nobody for miles in each direction. That's what it looks like when you're watching the videos from Abu Dhabi.
Totally. And that's definitely what it's like on the race course out there. The sand is completely, it's soft, it's hot, it's, the dunes are steep. And so it's definitely something very different that you can't really experience, at least in Southern California.
Tell me about race day a little bit.
So race day, that was probably one of my most nerve-wracking days I've experienced racing, as you can imagine. Waking up, we had about a 45-minute drive out to the venue. The venue was this kind of like luxury resort, Al Wathba was the name of it. And so driving out to the desert away from Abu Dhabi, after about 15 minutes, it quickly just turns into a desert road, literally sand kind of on the sides of the pavement. We're driving out there, it's early in the morning, and so quickly you're leaving the city, and before you know it, there's nothing but sand. You see these dunes, and it got really quick, realizing like, okay, this is I'm literally in the middle of the desert. Like, where's this venue? Like, what's happening? What have I gotten myself into? And so just arriving was a really surreal experience, driving and seeing the Spartan flag showing up to the venue, and really starting to actually see the dunes in the distance and be like, oh, dang, okay.
Like it's like desert, but then when you get to the venue, it's like dunes?
Nothing extreme like that, but after driving, you start to actually see like the open desert area. And so you start to see these dunes and realizing like, okay, wow, this is the course, this is where they're putting the course, And so it was just a really interesting experience. I'd never been out in the sand dunes before, even out in certain areas of the desert, on the West Coast. And so it was really cool just walking up to the venue and, just having this like little luxury resort popping out of nowhere. And, 5-star resort, looks like this little, castle in the middle of nowhere. And walking in was definitely exciting and different from a normal race that you'd see here in the States. So that was definitely cool just to be in a different setting than you're normally racing in, but also scary.
What about the actual race? Once you guys started racing, how'd the race go?
So the race started out fast. Before I knew it, I'm at the start line, and at the start line, it was interesting. It was different from any other start line I've ever been to. Obviously, people from all around the world you're racing. So I'm standing there. No one's talking to each other. It's like this most silent, quiet. It was a very weird kind of vibe and tone. Like people were serious, no one's communicating, and I could tell, I was like, wow, this is the most focused group of athletes I've ever raced against.
Did you recognize a lot of the athletes at the start line?
There was two athletes from America that I recognized, and actually we got a cool photo. My wife snapped a quick photo of us. We're all throwing up the United States flag and everything. All the other racers I'd never met before.
That's cool, because you know how it is. If you run Spartan, you'll understand. Like, we see the same guys for years. Like I knew you more through racing than anywhere else when we first met. So that's kind of cool to be able to step into a competition with a bunch of new people from all over the world.
Totally. Yeah, so there's definitely that camaraderie with Spartan Race, especially you're racing against, fellow racers and friends. So, there's a little bit of that camaraderie in this type of situation, but a little bit more of like, hey, don't talk to me. I'm getting my mind right for this race. So that was definitely something that was different and got me kind of nervous. I was sitting there just standing in the corral and I was dripping sweat, not only just from the humidity, but just
hot, right?
Yeah, pretty hot. You're drinking, you're intaking caffeine and, that kind of thing before. So your body temperature is already up. But I was just sitting there. I was like, man, we gotta get this thing going. And of course they make you sit there and stand and wait probably about 10 minutes. And that's a little bit of a mental game right there. Yeah, longest 10 minutes ever. So the race, I placed 11th, so it wasn't what I was hoping for. I was actually showing up to this race thinking that maybe I had it in me to get on the podium, maybe third or something like that. And the race started and, immediately just kind of sprinted up towards the front of the pack and definitely some fast guys. Right at the start, I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with some of these faster athletes. But I ran a really good race overall. I felt like I had paced well and, probably around mile 8, the race got a little weird. It, my body wasn't cooperating with me that day, unfortunately. And, started getting some of these, twinges kind of into my quads and, quickly, I think I just was dehydrated and, cramped up. And that was a really tough moment for me in that race, realizing like, man, I don't have it today. This is where the race changes. And so I had a great race up until that point, and it quickly changed on me. So that was a new experience. I'm not used to that happening to me. And so seeing how the race turned a little bit and doing what I could to keep going and finish the race and be proud of what I had done that day. So
and that year, bro. I mean, gosh, like honestly, I think I hope that if you're watching this, I hope that this is maybe one of the most relatable moments for you in the whole talk is that I don't know if I ever see you struggle, right? And it's cool to know that maybe you struggle sometimes because that's not your identity. Your identity. You're still a winner in every way I can imagine. You had an incredible year. I think respectfully, I think that might be the only race that you didn't actually win this year. Is that a fair statement? Did you win every single race you ran this year except for that one race?
Except one in San Luis Obispo, the first race of the year, I placed second.
Oh my gosh, right? So that being said, right, like there are some days where just, climate change, travel, coming off a back injury. Yeah. I mean, gosh, there's probably something really motivational to say about like a lot of people a month and a half before having to travel across the world to race in the World Championship would have been like, dude, my back ain't right. I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Right. So even just rallying your body up to get you to that stage and to be able to race on the biggest stage of the world, mad respect. I'm proud of you, bro. I've told you that 100 times over since I've seen you.
Thank you.
So I hope you go back one of those days and you go take that thing if that's what you want. But I absolutely don't see it as a loss in any other way, shape, or form. I really respect your journey and respect your year, man. I think you had an incredible year. It's cool to watch.
Thank you very much. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's we can't just expect these good things to keep happening without some of these harder moments and some of these things that aren't going to go right. And that's, I would say, would have been insanely good luck and a miracle if I had won that race. I don't think people would have believed me. So just knowing I had a really good year and it's I'm proud of what I did and finishing the race and as much pain as those cramps put me through, but I was had to be honest with myself that it was the conditions that I was in. It was just it wasn't working in my favor that day. And I'm still really proud of what I accomplished this early on this year. And regardless, through the ups and downs of where like our end goal is, you got to deal with some of these roadblocks, and some things just aren't going to work out according to plan, and that's okay because next time, next turn or next straightaway, you might pick up some momentum and you might, you're going to get to that goal. So it just might be a little bit harder.
I mean, really, if you think about it, right, you were one of 3 Americans racing the World Championship race. Like, just to get on the stage alone, it's such a the barrier of entry there is insane. So, man, again, super respect. I also, I watch your year because I see you, we work alongside each other. So I see you all the time. And I think when you had your back injury in October, gosh, it's such a long season. The Spartan season's long. So, I mean, you started racing in January and you're talking World Championships in December. There's no other seasons like that in sport. If you think about basketball, they play for maybe 4 or 5 months out of the year, and then they have a long off season, a preseason, a postseason. There's seasons. For the Spartan athlete, it's season, just season.
Yeah.
Right. So, dude, I think it was an incredible year for you, man. I hope you're proud of your performance your year. I know, at least for me, I've never ran a Spartan race out of the United States. What was different about the actual race itself? Was the race venue different? Were the obstacles different at all? Was it, what varied with the race from a normal race?
Yeah, so obviously the terrain is different, sand and dunes, so that's a very original type of race. You're not going to get that anywhere else but Abu Dhabi, so that's why it's been kind of this interesting World Championship as of a couple of years ago. The obstacles are definitely a little bit different. Depending on where you're racing, anywhere around the world, the Spartan race just creates the obstacles a little bit differently. So some of the carries were interesting. There was a Bedouin carry, and it was like this giant clay pot that you had to pick up. It's probably like 80 pounds or something. And so like this awkward pot you had to pick up and move across. So that was kind of more funny than anything, and it would make this like thunk, this big, deep like thunk noise when you picked up and put it down. There's a couple of people that dropped it and it cracked, so I don't know if they thought about that. And some of the obstacles were just really challenging. One of the first obstacles was the Hercules hoist. So you're hoisting the sandbag up to the top and back down. So, obviously not short of sand. Those things were packed full. So that was probably one of the heaviest Herc hoists I've ever come across in Spartan race. So right when I hit that Herc hoist, I was like, okay, man, some of these obstacles are going to be challenging. Few of the other ones were, like they had the ape hanger there, so that's an obstacle you don't see too often. That was after I started cramping, so I was a little concerned on how my body was going to be able to hold up. Got through it though. And some of the other obstacles are mostly traditional ones that you're going to see at Spartan races. They had 3 bear crawls, like barbed wire crawls, so usually you're getting like 1, maybe 2 of those. So a lot of long barbed wire crawls, and always a challenge when you're crawling in like this hot sand. So that was definitely a different challenge for this type of race. They had a Z wall, so they called it like a zigzag wall. Really cool. I hope they bring this into the States. It's a little bit longer of a variation than the regular Z wall, but they put like these pipes right at the beginning, so you don't have anything for your feet, so you're kind of doing like this Ninja Warrior flexed hang type of grappling hold, and then you get to the Z wall, and then the finishing part of the Z wall has ropes. So definitely nice little challenge that kind of caught us off guard. That was a fun change.
Only a little bit jealous right now. It sounds so.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see that around here in 2023. And they had an A-frame, but it was massive. They had like a 50-foot A-frame. I thought that was really cool. It was definitely like a spectacle to see that right at the finish line. So that was fun. A little scared of heights, so that was fine though. I think realizing that there's a net underneath me, I'm okay.
Catch net? Or the net you're walking up, you mean?
Just the net you're walking up, So I feel like I don't think anyone's fallen through one of those yet. So that was kind of cool though, being able to, flip down the carbon net a couple times.
You flip it and roll it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Flip and roll.
If you've never ran a Spartan race before, the A-frame, you don't know you're afraid of heights until sometimes you get up on top of some of these really high things. I was on the Stairwaves Sparta one year at Tahoe, and it was like at the top of the mountain. It just happened to be a windy day. So you're at the very top of the mountain already. They've got this, it's probably maybe a 15-foot wall would be my guess for Stairwaves Sparta. Mm-hmm. Right? So you like run up this wall, and then there's like this ladder that you climb up, but when you get to the top, that thing was rickety, bro. It was a little sketchy. So all of a sudden you start second guessing your simple things that you would normally do so well.
Yeah.
So 50 foot or something like that. Gosh, man, that sounds cool. I would like to see that. It would be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely something different.
All right, Noah. So if you could give advice to somebody who's just been racing for fun, but maybe wants to step up to be a little bit more competitive, what kind of advice would you give that racer?
Yeah, so I would say, figure out exactly what their goal is and kind of reverse engineer it from there. So I would highly recommend, if they're used to doing the regular open Spartan races, have them hop into an age group race. Get some more competition around them, and so they can kind of see where they're stacking up. And it's also, that's gonna light a fire in a lot of people. Seeing like, okay, I see that person ahead of me, or it's gonna allow them to see where some of their weaknesses are. And I think that's a good starting point when they go back to training, to figure out, okay, what have I been doing well? Let's keep working on that, but let's also focus on the areas that, are maybe their downfall. And, from there, you can start to pick harder races. So maybe at the start, you just start with, some local, maybe some of the more off-season type of races, and you hop into age group and see how you do. And just use it as stepping stones, see how you perform, and see what you can do better the next time.
Oh, that's great advice. Very, very good. I'll kind of build on that. If you, let's say, maybe it's a personal question. Asking for a friend. Say you're kind of competitive, like you run well, but you really want to be the next world champion or the next North American champion. What's one piece of advice you'd give somebody that's already racing competitively, but like, how do you go from being good to being great?
So I definitely think that, seeing where you're at and understanding like how much time and commitment you're putting into it, and then understanding like what's the goal, what's the outcome you're looking for, and asking yourself, hey, is this something I'm really passionate about? Because most of us know, in order to get a little bit better can take a lot more effort. And obviously, to be someone that's the best of their craft, or someone that's able to beat out others, it's going to take a lot of extra work. So understanding that you're going to have to make some sacrifices, and if you're okay with that, and understanding that, okay, it's going to take a little bit more work over here, it's going to take a little bit more focused work with your food or your training, I think that's the first step in really understanding that if the commitment's there, then the work can start to follow from there.
There was a question that Tim Grover asked of cleaners, that if it's the national championship game and your firstborn son's being born, where are you at? And for the cleaners, it's a no-brainer. I'm on the field. I'm at the game. And when I say it, it feels inauthentic to me, because right now, like, my wife's pregnant. If my next son was being born, I'd be in the nursing room with her. I'd be there. But that may be why I'm not best in the world at my craft. It's so hard. They're right. There's sacrifices. Understand, like, what does it really take to be the best? More than most people are willing to give for their crafts. And working alongside you, man, I've seen you put in that effort. I've seen it. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen you miss a trail run. Right? If you watch the Strava, man, it goes crazy. So anyways, a lot of respect for what you built this last year. Thanks for the advice. I heard it. I'm going to take some of that and hopefully get better from it. I hope you get better from it, because there's all kinds of knowledge bombs that Noah dropped in this interview today. So you rocked, man. Thank you so much. You brought the noise. I have one last question for you. Would you do it again? Would you go back to Abu Dhabi and race again?
Oh man, gave this a little bit of thought, actually, and I would go back. It was such an amazing experience going out there. Abu Dhabi is just an incredible place on itself. I think I would go back with a little bit more of a plan, and attack the race with, again, a little bit more of that cleaner type of mentality, and get a better outcome than I got this time. So I definitely think I could go back and do it again. Not this year. I'm going to take a little bit more of a break this year. We're expecting in April as well. So
Team Dad, baby. Team Dad.
And so I could definitely foresee myself in the future going back and taking care of business, and feeling a little bit more like I closed the book, or closed the chapter on this Abu Dhabi race.
Awesome, man. I'm sure you'll go back and crush it, bro.
Thanks, man.
So, Noah, where can we find you at, man? Where can people connect with you a little bit more if they want to know more about your story, or learn more about how to grow in their training?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to link in the show notes for all of that. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for joining us. If you found value in this podcast or this interview, we'd love for you to share it with somebody that you think it would benefit. Maybe somebody that's Spartan racing, somebody who's brand new to Spartan racing. I think there's a ton of motivation today. And then Fitness on Fire is located in Irvine, California. So if you ever want to come and actually work with us in person, maybe get some coaching from Coach Noah himself, you could definitely come check us out. We'd love to serve you.